Hi guys, thank you out there in internet land for joining us for this first drum masterclass. This is coming live from this absolutely beautiful building, which is Komedia in Bath. So thank you Komedia Bath and also DW Drums for making this whole thing possible. And I have to say, being in, I mean you can't see it unfortunately, but being in this splendid room on my own, playing drums for you guys, it's almost one of the biggest treats I can tell you, because I used to come to this room when it was the Beau Nash Cinema back in the day and saw many great films here, and all my family came here too. There's a lot of history in these four walls. So thank you for joining me, and if you're a drummer, obviously, great, you've made it. And if you're watching this and you're not a drummer, I think you'll probably get something out of this as well, because we've just come through lockdown and we're kind of still in it in a way. But I found over the last few months, I was talking to Luke, who is actually our sound man this evening, and also we have Joe here as well, who's doing the streaming as well. And if you've got a question, actually, remember to put it at #AskRob, and then Luke will be firing the questions to me. So I did that now in case I forget. But I was talking to Luke about the online drum community, and we know that the drummers stick together. They're a fantastic community. They share, whether they're a beginner or advanced, intermediate. We can all break bread and, you know, have beers together and hang out and share stories and stuff. And I was talking to him about what I thought was important. And it'd be very easy to kind of attack this stream with, you know, lots of chops and ideas and stuff, you know, which is fine. There'll be some of that in there, but really I wanted to get across some things that I found important to me. And I've been drumming for 35 years. My name is Rob Bryan, by the way, but you probably already know that. So today I'm going to bring some ideas that I find challenging, but also have really opened up my creativity. These things are all about creativity. Me showing ideas to you, you taking them away, I'm working on them, and hopefully they'll help your groove making. And if you write music, they make you help you think about rhythm and how you put your drums into your music in a different way. Hence why I said this might also attract vocalists, also guitar players, bass players, any instrumentalist. So, what am I looking at? Right, we know how to play in time, hopefully. I'm sure a lot of people out there will be breaking gags about drummers playing in time. But if I play rock beat A, if you like, the standard rock beat, sounds something like this, in 4/4. Great. Nothing wrong with that in the slightest. And you could get on Spotify now and find millions of songs that have been big hits with that rhythm. But as I say, we're looking at something, trying to do something different here, something a bit more creative, that we can take from the practice room maybe to the stage. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to shift the beats back by one beat, so by a quaver. So instead of playing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, I'm just going to play on the ands. 1 and 2 and 4. So I'm sort of flipping the rhythm round. So that's going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now for people just joining us, maybe didn't hear that first bit, they'll just hear the rhythm as this. Because the human ear and brain just wants to latch on to something we recognize. And I thought of this before lockdown. I was doing a drum camp, the Palace Drum Camp in Redditch. And, you know, I was thinking about how the rhythms can switch around and how they can move and just sound a bit more creative if you move them. And I found that I went further down the rabbit hole when I experienced and thought about experiences I've had by moving these things around and taking them to the table at a recording session or even at a rehearsal, where I've thought, okay, the rhythm needs to do something. I can't add any more beats to it, so why don't I just change the beats round? So you get this kind of lopsided effect. And again, if you're doing, well, none of us are really doing many gigs, but if you were doing a wedding gig this weekend, I wouldn't suggest you doing this on Dancing Queen or anything like that, because you lose your gig. But it's just something to try for a bit of fun. So I'm going to play one bar straight ahead, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and the second bar I'm going to play on the ands, so we get this kind of weird, almost falling over type rhythm. It's going to sound like this. So one is the standard rhythm, and one flips itself around. And you know, this can happen to you when sometimes you're listening to the radio and you listen to a song halfway through, or you just put the TV on, maybe you're watching Jules Holland or something, and all of a sudden a track comes on and you think, this is in 7/8, this is in 9/8, and you just can't find out where the one is because you've come in and you've heard it in a different way. So really, any quaver rhythm we can play like this, we can do also when we start adding extra beats in. So if you think of any of the semiquaver beats like this, any of those, we can flip around and turn on their head to sound different. And here's one for you. Check this one out. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll play that one again a bit slower. So what I'll do, so we don't lose our place with it, I'll play some bars of straight time and go in and out of it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now when this rhythm starts to move like that and you add some extra rhythms in, some of those semiquavers, it starts to sound a bit funky. And you start to see where some of the James Brown grooves started to originate from. And when people say things like funk and groove is in the spaces, you start to think, hang on a minute, so leaving out that 1 and that 2, that little breath of fresh air of the music suddenly gives the whole thing a totally different feel. Now, if I played something like this, it's going to be in straight 4/4 time. I'm going to start to play something that's kind of funky, and instantly you'll see what I mean. So check this out. So we're talking funk, you know, with a capital F there, you know. So let's play that just a little bit slower. 1, 2, 3. Right, let's investigate what's happening with those pa, pa, pa. Now, all of these accents come from a 16th note. Now, all of us can play a 16th note. Even a beginner who says, I can't play any fills, I can't do anything. You can all do this. Yes, that's the winner. That's the one that gets you the gig. So, that's 16th note. We get 4 beats. 1 E-ander. And then 2 E-ander, 3 E-ander, 4 E-ander, if we're in 4/4, playing it around the drums, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, funk lives in those spaces. So if we play those 4 all of the time, that's fine. There's loads we can do with that, and that's cool. And we should keep working on different combinations, whether it be one-handed 16s, or whether it's just really fast fills around the kit. You know, all this is fair game, and we should practice it all. But sometimes we don't think about, what if we take things away? You know, I think Miles Davis said something about, you know, the space in the music, you know, is a beautiful thing, and you should make the most of it. It's what I don't play that's the thing. And for years, I used to think, that's crazy. It's a little bit pretentious. But actually, the more I work in the studio, certainly where you can hear a pin drop, everything is, you know, under the microscope, it really brought home that that is actually true. So now we're going to get into creating some spaces. So we've shifted emphasis a little bit, and we've moved the grooves around. And there's loads of space in that. I could go to the ride cymbal. You could do it on a cowbell. You know, it's open house, that. But now we're starting to look at making some spaces in that music. We had the space in the 1, 2, 3, and the 4, because we were playing off of that. Now we're going to be a bit more complex with it and look at the same process, but with a 16th note. So we've got one eander. So what happens if we take some of the beats away? That's when we start to get other rhythms. So if you know we're getting to a whole host, a whole world of other rhythmic concepts. So, for instance, if I just play the first 2 each time, and I'll play the bass drum on 1, 2, 3, and 4 to give us a count for the crotchet, for the tempo, and I'll just play the first 2. That's going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I could play the middle 2. So. I could play the last 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there's just a few just by playing the 2. Put 2 at the beginning, 2 in the middle, 2 at the end. What if we take some of the other notes around it and start playing singles? Obviously, if we play beat 1, we just end up with a crotchet. So, but even in that, because we're on this 16th note grid, and I'm kind of obsessed with grids of time because this is kind of feeding into this concept. If I'm seeing, a bit like in Iron Man, when he's kind of making his plans and stuff, and he's doing it all in the air, which I'm sure one day we'll be able to do with computers anyway and stuff, and he sort of moves things away as he needs it, Mr. Stark. You know, I kind of like that concept of seeing the grid of time in front of me. So I'm imagining dagger, 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 dagger. If that's our tempo, dagger, 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 dagger. So I'm seeing that, but I'm choosing which ones I want to play because I've practiced where they all live and how they feel when I move them away. So we've done the 2. Now let's look at taking just single notes of that pattern. So we're taking more away. So take up 3 away each time. So we said the first one is a 16. So as I'm playing those crotchets, I'm still thinking of the So I've got like an orchestra in my head playing that pattern, even though anyone walking in the room is just going to hear me playing, Rob's playing crotchets. That's quite novel. That's quite nice. Maybe he's going back to his early childhood, you know. But in my head, I'm thinking that and you'll see why in a second, because it's going to help us feel all these different grids of time. So let's take the first one away and the last 2. So basically, let's play the second stroke of the 16, which is going to sound a bit jaggedy, but that's the point, because there's some rhythms to be had from that. So we said crotchet is this. I'll keep the bass drum going, and I'll play the second beat. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that one sounds a bit interesting. That's going to be interesting when we want to put that on our hi-hat in a second, or in our bass drum, and around the toms as fills, because I'm going to be making music out of all this stuff. This is just the formula as to how I got there and how you guys can get there. The next one is the third beat, which isn't so hard to feel. You know, it's the third beat, so 1 E and 2 E and. It feels like a kind of backbeat. So again, here's the bass drum on crotchets. So the count for that is 1 D and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and, 1 E and, 2 E and. So we're on the ands. So that, you know, sounds quite familiar, that. If It's a bit like I'm playing in a pit orchestra for, I don't know, Sound of Music or I don't know, something. That kind of vibe. The last one is going to be the fourth beat. So that'll be 1, E, and the last stroke just before the next downbeat, next crotchet. There's some interesting things to be had from here as well. So that's going to sound like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, E, and E, and E, and E, and Okay, so the twos were probably a little bit easier to feel. Da-da, da-da, ba-ba, ba-ba, da-da, da-da. Whereas the singles can be a little bit more awkward to feel. So I'll just go through them again, and I'll play them very lightly on my bass drum, the crotchet, and I'll count, and I'll play on the rim where those strokes fall. So 1, 2, 3, 4. First beat, 1, 2, 3, 4. Second beat, 1, 2, 3, 4. Third, and, E and a, fourth, and a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4. So all of those little strokes, they can be awkward to learn. And I get a lot of my students with a practice pad, just with the metronome going, what I like to say, down the dusty end, down the slower end, down to the sort of 60s, 50s, 45s, 40s, dare I say it, to feel that grid of time that slowly. 1 E and 2 E, because it just solidifies their kind of timing so much, and also up the sort of hotter end as well. But, you know, getting down that dusty end is really a good way to really internalize this, because we find sometimes when you see a drummer and they're really digging in with their body movements, you know, Steve Gadd does that, you know, and he's a genius, you know, and Manu Katché and different drummers, they're sort of feeling that time within their bones, within their body. People think, oh, they're just being hip, you know, that's just a hip thing. Might be a little bit of that, who's to say? But feeling that time in the body when you can't always play these strokes, because remember, as drummers, when we're going into a professional environment, if someone says to me, for instance, Rob, we're doing a ballad. I'm like, great, lovely. How slow? Slow. How slow? Rob, it's going to be slow, but it'll be fine. And I'm thinking, yeah, totally. I'm totally down with that. How far down the dusty end? So if it's down the dusty end, I'm okay. Because what's happening in my head, if I'm playing a part like this, let's just give you a demo for this, right? So it's rim click to start with. Good cliche, always works for verses, maybe building up to the snare, to the bridge, to the chorus, ride, snare, brilliant. Let's say that bit of the track is sorted. Everyone's happy, they're going, yep, the arrangement is good. Now let's look at the part. So if it's something like this, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Most of us would want to visit the hi-hat in this way. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And maybe we've run it a few times. Everyone seems happy. Then maybe the artist comes in, or maybe the producer, and there's that moment where they're like, drummer, Rob, drummer, that's me. Too many 16s, it just sounds like on my track, the hi-hat is too much. You think, okay, down to the quaver, fine. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can see a conflab happening, discussing. Let's hi-hat. Okay, now this could be a time when, certainly when I was younger, I would started to panic and start to sweat a little and think, oh my goodness, this is getting scary. And then mentioning the C word for a click. Now it's really scary. So I would go down to the crotchet. Let's hi-hat. Okay. Let's bass drum. That's the same bass drum. Good point. Let's bass drum. Let's bass drum. Now, when it comes to these points, and this actually did happen to me, this is definitely something that happened to me on the job. At the time, it was, as I say, nerve-wracking, sweating. It was kind of, But what happened was I learned that this grid of time that everyone had been talking about came in very useful. Because all of a sudden, even though everyone is hearing all this space like this, in my head I'm going, so this starts to show us why some drummers, when they're playing certain grooves, may be dancing around a little bit more, because in their head, they're counting. They're not just counting, they're feeling those beats, they're singing those grids of time. And of course, I was doing 30 seconds and 64. You know, it's almost like an Indian tabla pattern or something I was starting to sing. But all of that was cementing together the time. So even if they wanted me to drop out the rim click on beat 4, it's like absolutely fine, because I'm counting. And if they put the click on, I can connect directly to that. And I can also ask if they can change the click up a little bit, but that's another thing. So I found that really helped me solidify my time. So it all came from looking at that 16th note, thinking of that grid of time, thinking about all the individual notes that go into that and where they all sit on the actual grid itself. So if I wanted to add extra bits, I could. And also if I wanted to make some interesting drum fills, I could do that as well, because I wouldn't have to stitch together all the other notes to make it interesting. Again, that's kind of specific to a genre or the type of song you're playing. Some songs need all the other strokes around them. But sometimes, you know, I'm talking, like I say, in the practice room. This is something for us to practice, to then maybe take to the stage. And then maybe you could use half the idea of the broken 16 going into a more complete 16, which I'll show you in a minute. So this grid of time is worth experimenting with. And I also, when I'm on sessions, and a lot of the time I don't know the other musicians I'm working with. I'm quite lucky that a lot of the times I do. And there's a lot of great people just in this Bath, Bristol area that I work with, and had a very long career working with them, and they're fantastic people. But even with some of those people I've known for years, I will say at a rehearsal, if something isn't sitting and we're not using electronics and stuff, I'll say, and a click and backing tracks, I'll say, you know, guys, what grid are we on? Are we on a triplet grid? Are we on a 16, a quaver? You know, all that kind of thing helps to share that around, because I'm sure all of you out there that play in bands would have had a time when something maybe isn't sitting quite right. And it could be the fact that someone is just feeling that groove, that rhythm in just a slightly different way. So sometimes finding if it's me making the mistake, I was on the wrong grid. I'm on the triplet thing now. I'm on it. I was playing them too straight. Or if it's the other way, blah, blah, blah. But that could go to a vocalist. That could go to a rhythm guitar player. Could go to a keyboard player. It could just stop those awkward little moments in songs that you could actually start to come together and get things just a little bit tighter. Right, let's go back. Oh, by the way, if there's any questions, please shoot them in at any point. I'm sort of going 100 miles an hour to get, there's quite a few things I want to get through. But if there's any questions, Luke, please holler and let me know.
We've had a few in. There's a lot of interest going on, lots of lovely comments.
OK, very good. Well, we'll stop there then for a minute. We'll have a question or two. Yeah, OK.
Yeah, would you like to?
Yeah, go on,
All
then
right.
Why not? I'll give him a break for a sec.
A few people, understandably, have asked about the snare drum. I'm sure you can guess.
What do they mean?
Along the lines of what I'm talking about. I wonder, can you talk through it very quickly and just explain what you've got going on?
I take it you mean the angle, people.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, OK, well, you know, yeah, my dear father, who's not with us anymore, bless him, he was a jazz drummer, and when he taught me, he really wasn't keen on me playing match grip. I don't think it was a question of he thought it was a bad thing. There's plenty of drummers he loved and would show me records and stuff and make me listen to these guys that were match grip. But I learned traditional. All right, maybe the angle of the snare is more acute than he probably showed me. But I tried through the 80s having it facing up like the other guys. I mean, Dave Buckle could do it, all those guys could do it, Vinny. But every time I did it, I just hit myself in the face. It sounds silly, but it was coming straight. I couldn't control it any other way because of the way my dad had shown me this traditional grip, and I just couldn't get it. So I started to angle it against all the odds of all the other drummers through the 80s and 90s, and I kept angling it down and down until I found a place that was comfortable for rim shots or basic playing. And people say, what about your right hand? But my right hand, you know, I mean, you can probably see from the side, there's plenty of room for expression. So there's, you know, I can play on this drum anywhere to create the different sounds I want. But yeah, I've had one tour, actually. I was touring with a band called Modern English in '96. And the manager said, it just looks too jazzy, I don't like it, could you change it up? So I actually did a whole tour match grip with the angle of my snare drum up. And by the time I got back after the 4 months, I'd lost, it just felt weird getting back into my traditional grip. And even when I was playing with Siouxsie Sioux, you know, he's obviously a punk artist and a legendary punk artist, I should say. Even that stuff with the big, I was playing those budgie beats, you know, I mean, he was a great drummer. I had to recreate the power of that. And I had to do it with, I did it with traditional grip. I thought, that's it. I'm never going back to that again. So, but I do realise a lot of people on my Facebook take the mickey and say, that's very acute. Soon it'll be, you know, like old-fashioned like that, Baby Dolls or something. But maybe, but I don't think I'll go quite that far. So I hope that answers that.
Absolutely. Can I give you one more quick relevant question?
Absolutely, before I pile in, yes.
When it comes to, so earlier on you were talking about when you're in the studio and you're going to have to really slow it down and there's a lot of spaces.
Yep.
Do you have any tips for how at home you can practice keeping that really slow tempo whilst actually keeping an inner clock?
Yep, metronome every time. Set up your good friend, Mikey the metronome, set him up and just sit down and befriend it. Because I hear a lot of guys, some guys come to me just for this grid of time sort of lesson. You know, they'll come for 2 or 3, 4 lessons on this. And they say the first problem, Rob, is that I hate the metronome, which is a strong word, but I've heard it said. And I'm like, it's your biggest ally. It's your best friend. You know, get to love it. Don't fight it, you know, because it's there to help you. And actually, these exercises we're doing today, when I put the click on a bit later, you can actually use the click and mess with it. So it's actually playing on the other side of what you're doing. So it almost sounds like you're playing with a percussionist. But that's going to this next bit, which we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, just sit with the metronome and just get used to it. And I'll tell you what, if you use this grid of time, this counting system, it's going to really help you. If you had it on just like 50 BPM, 75 BPM, let's say, and you just went through these 16th notes and you were counting the beats in between, it doesn't take long for you to get this inner clock working, you know, and you start breathing and you start feeling those rhythms. And it's fascinating how quickly it all kind of ties itself together. So the next time someone says, oh, sorry, this, you know, if you do a wedding gig, sorry, it's all to track. It's like, fine. Send me the set list, I'll learn the songs. And you can just sit back on that click and you can mess with it a little bit, play slightly behind it, in front of it, and all that kind of stuff. And it becomes your ally. So it's all about grid of time, understanding that timing. Because let's face it, even, you know, I've got some great friends. There's a great drummer that lives in Bath, Mark Whitlam, who's an amazing player and piano player. Damn it, and he's younger than me. But he's a superb musician. And he does that circuit. I don't do that circuit, but he's also a great jazz drummer too. And he says nearly everything's on click, Rob. You know, it's not just, you know, you doing that on those kind of gigs or whatever. You know, I'm doing it in the studio too, like you are, but I'm also doing it in the pit, you know, at the Theatre Royal, around the corner, which obviously isn't doing shows at the moment, like this place, unfortunately. So, you know, you've got to get into that. If you're going to look to be semi-professional to professional, you have to start getting friendly with the click. I mean, I love Ringo when he says, I am the click, you know, but he's Ringo Starr, you know. That's fair enough. He's got a few years under his belt, hasn't he, in some band that apparently were quite famous.
That's great.
So is that okay?
Absolutely. Can I just say one thing before we go back to the lesson?
Yes.
I just want to let people know that I'm monitoring a few different chats here, so if you want to make sure that your question is answered, please use the Twitter.
Right.
#AskRob. I'm watching the chats. If there's a question in the chats, I will try and pick it up, but if you want to make sure that I see it, Twitter.
Did you get that, people?
I hope so. Back to you.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Right, okay, so, we broke down that 16th note. Let's start making music. I said at the start, all this stuff I like taking from the practice room to the drum kit, from the practice pad to the drum kit, not just the practice room. And we broke down this 16. You might think, why the devil did he do that? He played some things. Right, let's show you how we can start making music. So I've got some exercises here. Now, I'm privy to this at the moment. I know you're not. So what we're going to say is at the end of the show, if you want to contact me on my social media, YouTube, Instagram or whatever, or my website, I can send you the PDFs of all this stuff. Okay, so I'll break it down for you and I'll play it and give you the idea so then you can run off to your drum rooms and have a go at it. And when you want to actually have the PDFs, just contact me and I'll get them to you. So we're going to look at playing grooves on the hats with these broken beats. So let's look at that 16 again. So we have the second beat, which was 1E, 2E, 3. Now if I play basic groove, like rock beat A on bass and snare, and then I start to add that 2E on the hi-hat, you start to get a different kind of feel. So I'll count you in. 1, 2, 3, 4. It hasn't any flow at the moment, I will give you that, but we're just going through the connotations. The third one was on the and. This is going to feel a lot more familiar again. It's almost like the disco beat, okay, like the linear disco beat. So it'll be 1 E and, 2 E and so on. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. Okay, now before I go forward, let's put beat 2. So that E stroke of the 16th note with that and. Then we start to get a pairing and a more interesting, fuller sounding rhythm. So check this out. So it'll be 1 E and, 2 E and, 3, which we played earlier around the kit. So on the hi-hat, it'll sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Two E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. Okay, let's try that just a little bit faster to get a bit more flow going. So 1, 2, 3. Love that. Right. Okay, so there you've got a bit more groove. It started to sound, and you probably noticed I was starting to move then as well because I was feeling that grid of time. Obviously, when it gets faster, you can't count 1 E and a 2 E and a 3. You start to feel it internally by then. You don't need to count. And if you do, you should probably slow it down a bit first, get the feel, and then go back up. Okay, so if we go back to the single beats, let's play the 1 E and on the hi-hat now. So 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4. A little bit faster. 1, Now, if I pair up the third one, the and, with that last one, the we start to get this pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 E ander, 2 E ander, 3 E ander, 4 E ander, 1 E ander, 2 E ander, 3. Bit quicker. Okay, now if I combine these different patterns, we start ending up some really funky hi-hat parts without having to play, which is a great thing. One of my favorite beats is this. I love playing around on the hi-hat from the tip of the stick to the side of the stick for different things, and we'll cover that field stuff in another lesson, I'm sure. But when, again, someone says, less hi-hat, but I still want information in that groove, instantly we think, 16th note grid, I know all the singles, I know all the doubles, let's be having you. Let's see which ones we want to play. So let's play the middle two, and then the last two. So you end up with da-da, 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 da-da. And I think it's really important to be able to vocalize the rhythm. And in a second, we're going to talk about melody in rhythm as well. But this pattern, da-da, 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 you could probably find, in different ways played in orchestras, in a country song, in a funk song, in a Kraftwerk song. It's just all rhythm. And as I say, we'll get more into that in a second with the melody part. So we've got da-da, 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 which actually, when it's on the hi-hat, this thing holds a lot of information. And there's a lot of engineers out there in the studio that don't like miking hats because they say, oh, man, those things, I'll get enough of those in the overheads. And we're like, oh, man, but we've worked so hard playing the hi-hat for all these years. Like, how dare you deny us this moment of... But it's like, we're not going for it on this track. And you think, okay, fair enough. So we're playing less hi-hat, but we want movement. So we're going to do the middle two strokes, ba-ba, da-da, and the last two, da-da, da-da, in a pairing, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4. A bit quicker. 1, 2, 3. At this point, I'll just mention as well that you can, with this hi-hat, you can play on the top. For a very tight sound, you can play on the side. So. And you should experiment with both, and also moving between them as well at times. So there I'm going ta-ta, ta-ta. So let's go from the tip of the stick to the side, the shoulder of the stick. And you can hear, especially in the studio, you can really hear that nuance in the groove when the people take the faders down and just listen to that drum track, and just take the bass and the snare out and just hear that. Then you put a bass guitar, bring the fader in for the bass and the rhythm guitar, and all of a sudden you're like, we don't need any more shakers on this song. We don't need a tambourine on this song because this hi-hat is taking all of the information. So, yeah, worth spending time on the hat. Not just these patterns, but also thinking about where you play on the hat. Open hats, quick, snappy, funky as well. Lovely. So we've got some variations with the 2 strokes. Now let's very quickly, before we move on, just look at some single ideas as well. So I've got some grooves here that are written out. As I say, you're not privy to that, but I'm going to play through some of these ideas which are using just the single strokes. So remember, we've got the first beat, but we're trying not to play the first beat if we can avoid it. That's being taken care of elsewhere on the kit. We've got the second beat of that 16, we've got the third, and we've got the fourth. So I'm just going to run through a few of these, so check out how they sound. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you see we're back to, because that's where that funk lives. It lives within that 16th note. So the next time you hear someone play, you'll be seeing all those beats written out. It's the first beat missing, but it's the second one, third beat missing, it's the fourth one, and the next one's along. That gat, gat, gat. Human nature usually doesn't make us want to feel that. We want to feel the, because the obvious test for a 16 is to play 16s hand to hand. Take the left hand away. We're left with that quaver. This time I'll take the right hand away. There's the funk right there. Getting onto the fills as well. So, funky rhythms, you know. Again, if you play in a punk band, you might think, that's not relevant to me yet. But as I say, this is practice room stuff. Think about it. Get it under your skin. Get it under the sticks. And then try and take it to the band and see what you can get. There's loads of ideas in here that you can have. So, fills. I'm going to move forward to the drum fills. If there's any questions on the grooves, Luke, please let me know.
Oh, I will. Don't worry, mate.
Yeah? All good. All good. It just gives me a quick bit of time to shuffle my music, you see.
I can give you a random question if you want.
See, I'm a professional. Oh, no.
Yeah, you look ready now. We'll come back to them.
We'll come back to that, yeah, unless it's a really good one. Right, so, fills. Now, I was playing this earlier, and Luke immediately, because he's a drummer as well, you see. There's loads of drummers in the room today. Well, there's 3 of us.
Literally a room full of drummers.
Yeah, and hopefully there is at home. But I played some of these fills, and he went, Phil Collins! And I was like, half of me was like, yeah, it is, but that's kind of a good thing. You know, it's kind of referencing, which we'll talk about on another masterclass, because referencing is one of my big things. All my students will go, oh, he's on about the referencing. But he is one of the great drummers at playing fills that are really, really open. And we could be here till 10 o'clock tonight naming other drummers that are good at this, but that's just, everyone knows Phil Collins, everyone knows those big open fills. So again, when you're on the grid, you don't just have to think it's all groove-based, even though it's really cool that it is groove-based. We can also play fills in this way. So if you ever think, I'm fed up of playing the same old fills around the kit, well, give yourself a challenge by playing less notes. And I'm sure your bandmates might agree with you sometimes. You know, I know mine do. So, you know, sort of analysing and breaking down these beats is a good thing. So what are we going to do? The same thing as the hat. So let's play some phrases around the drums where I'm just going to take little pieces away. I'll do it without the click to start with, and I'll put the click in so you can hear what it sounds like with the click as well. Now, we know where all these beats live. I don't need to say the second, the third, the fourth. You'll get any idea for this now. We want to keep the thing flowing. If you have a question, if you suddenly play something you don't know, tell Luke, and he'll let me know, and all will be good. So I'm going to keep the bass drum playing the crotchet for now. But keep thinking your da ga 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 ta ga 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 3 E and a 4. Keep counting if you can, because that's going to keep you in to where all the different beats are going to come. And I'm going to be playing a whole variation of the second, third, fourth, 2s, 3s, and so on. But hopefully, if I can, never playing on beat 1 with my hands. That's the plan. So. It's almost like a bit of a safety blanket. It feels more comfortable. You start to know where the beats fall. But I'm going to play with the click in a second. I'm going to play some of these fills where I don't want to play the... Though clearly I'm a huge Ringo fan, so I actually love playing those kind of big open fills with all the beats in between. But I'm going to try not to here, okay? So I'm going to run a click. Let me know if you can't hear this, Luke.
I'm getting it.
Yay! Nice. Okay, now I'm going to play that a little bit slower, actually. I'm going to play that at 60 as well. So, once again, let me know if you're not getting this, Luke. Okay, 60 BPM, same thing. So we're thinking 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a... Okay, now hopefully if you've got that grid in your head, none of that felt scary anymore because you've got that safety blanket of that ba 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 ga 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 ga. It's always there. So let me try it one more time. I'll go down the hotter end. Where are we going to go? We're going to go 110, I believe. Okay, so as they get a bit faster, they get a bit funkier, and they still work. You don't have to be that slow in the air tonight tempo for them to work. They can work either end. And it just gives you a different way of playing your fills. It just breaks you up from the or whatever. Or if you're more into your, whatever. It just gives you that time to think, the less is more approach. Less is more can be funky. Those little spaces in what I'm playing change the whole thing up a little bit, give it a bit of a different flavour.
Rob, can I give you a quick question?
You can do, sir.
Is there anywhere else other than funk that you'd use this kind of music and this technique?
As I kept saying the word funk, I thought, why am I saying the word funk all of the time? Because you can use this in any style of music. It doesn't have to be genre specific. You can use this absolutely anywhere. Probably the only place you may not be able to use it is classical or somewhere where someone else is conducting the time, which clearly, that's a different thing. But certainly when you're on the grid again, that G word, when you're on the grid here or with the metronome or with backing tracks, it's definitely a thing you have to get into in any style of music. So, yeah, it's not, I keep saying the funky thing because you can relate to that quite quickly with that feel of the pulse and the groove, and you can almost hear the acoustic, the electric guitar doing its thing.
People are agreeing, to be fair.
Oh, are they?
There's a lot of funk-related comments.
Hey!
Yeah, especially funk with a capital F and soul with a capital S.
I was going to say there might be some PH funk coming in as well. Yeah, and I'm a big fan of that. And of course, listening to music is, especially at the moment, we've got time. And that's why I say this thing was about being creative, giving you something else to look at that wasn't maybe just the, chops-y type stuff. Though obviously, as you can see, there are some chops in there. And actually, one thing, because I know probably time's getting near where we should be doing the questions maybe, or maybe not, I don't know. But you can get a bit more, for more drummy heads out there, let's say, or you're looking for something a bit more to get your teeth stuck into. If I just quickly go back to the drum fill idea, this is like a speech I've prepared. Right, so they don't have to be single strokes either. I've been playing flams, been playing unisons, play them anywhere. And of course, eventually, if you wanted to cheekily put some bass drums in between, you could do some double bass drum little things, so double bass drum patterns in there as well. They could suddenly become different things. So they start as Rob's idea of breaking down these 16s, but when you stitch together other foot patterns and things, they can become something else, which is what I'm saying. It's that creative flow. It starts you thinking, hopefully in a different way, and gets you thinking differently about your drumming. So let's take a simple phrase, like da-da-da-da-da, bum-bum, but we won't do the bum-bum bit, so... Quicker. Now if you take away that first stroke, so I played on the bass drum to begin with. If we take that one away, we've got something that doesn't give us that at the moment, okay? We're going to try and stay away from beat one now. This is that little experiment. We could play, if we're playing like a 5-stroke rough, that kind of thing. If we take away the single stroke, and I'll just play that on the bass drum. And again, because we're thinking of these notes, even though it's not there, we're all singing that. We can use that to our advantage. So we've got two now. We've got, if I put the bass drum in for now, we've got... Without the bass drum, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, we could play more beats if you want to, more beats. So instead of playing like... We could take the first two away play and just play those. 6 beats. So let's play it in a groove. So. Play it like that. So let's do this experiment because I'm aware of time and everything. Let's try and play everything where I don't play on the 1. Now, if I play the groove on a 1, that's okay. I'm going to give myself that, though I might not do that either. So I'm going to try and play something now where we're not conventionally going to get the feel. I may put a crash occasionally to center it on 1, but I'm going to try and play some fills and rhythms, all the stuff I've been talking about over this last hour, into like a little demonstration. And I'll probably add some extra little things in as well, just trying to improvise. And every now and again, I'll probably giggle as I play something on the 1, which is fine. You know, this is improvised at this point, okay? Got the information, now I'm going to play it directly in front of you. First time I've played it, first time you've seen it. So, let's have a go at this. So, click 75. Okay, so every now and again I let something fall on a groove just to cement that down again, and then go off and discover different shapes, different rhythms, different patterns. And I think that's where I, found some creative gold for myself. So when I was hearing tracks by, Tower of Power, all right, we're getting back into the funk thing for a minute, but only for this specific reason. When they were playing, and Snarky Puppy and all those kind of bands, all of a sudden, I might not be able to play that stuff instantly, but I can understand where it's coming from. And musical knowledge, is power for your music. The more you know, the more you learn, the more you listen, the stronger you'll be as a musician. So when someone plays a rhythm, you think, oh, that's a bit weird. It's not on all the ands, I don't like that very much. Then all of a sudden you think, oh, I know where that lives. That's on the E's and the R's. And all of a sudden those E's and R's become something you can befriend rather than thinking, oh, I don't do that. I could play every single note of a 16, but don't ask me to break it up. But, as I say, that's where some gold lies in that. And some freedom with keeping backbeat fills and thinking of phrasing with your right hand on toms. All that kind of stuff can be really useful when you're working with a band that say, I want to hear that backbeat, give me a fill, but I want the backbeat. And of course we stroke our chins because we learn fills that sometimes don't have that backbeat. It's a fill, it's a phrase. We're coming off of the beaten track, so to speak. But sometimes, you know, what the engineer or the artist wants isn't always something that's a drummy thing that can happen. So you have to find other ways of making that happen. And as I say, I've spent 30 odd years in the studio working with a whole host of artists, and an amazing experience, every one, even if they've been scary or a bit kind of, ooh, that was difficult or a bit awkward, whatever. They've all brought something to the table that I now could take with me and sort of pass on to you guys. So any questions, Luke, before we...
We have a few coming in.
Okay.
I don't mind leaving them all to the end. If you've got anything else you want to add to the end of your lesson, or...
Well, I can't see any clocks.
We've gone past the half-past mark, so...
So we're over time.
Yeah, but...
In true Rob fashion, we're over time. Brilliant. Well, maybe we could take some questions. I mean, I've got a demonstration to play along with some music of these ideas in a second anyway, which I'll play for you guys before we finish. Or would you sooner I do that now, Luke, and then do the questions?
Let's take some questions.
Let's do some questions. OK, very good.
Cool.
Let's do that.
I'll take this opportunity to say that if you do have any questions, do please contact us on Twitter with #AskRob. I've got a few in the comments as well. If you've left one in the comment, don't worry, I will get to you. Do you want to make us start?
Yes, sir, by all means.
So...
I'm sitting comfortably.
Are you sitting comfortably?
Then we shall begin.
Richard Pugh, I'm hoping I pronounced that right, asks, love the click playing crotchets and your hat foot rocking in 16ths. So easy to hear the grid with the left foot visual. Well
spotted, Richard. Yeah. And do you know what? I was going to mention that sometimes, you know, I mean, I'm wearing Converse today. Advertising there. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. But sometimes I'm doing a gig, you know, I might be wearing like Cuban heels or a boot of some variety. And sometimes the heel makes a mighty lot of noise on the footplate. And on a gig like that, all right, the band's probably loud enough. I wouldn't be necessarily wearing those on a jazz gig necessarily. But with these, it doesn't make much noise. So I can usually, if I bring my heel up a little higher, which I guess you can see on the cam, then I don't make that noise on the footplate, you know. So, because sometimes people say, I can still hear your hi-hat going. And it's like, ah. So trying to internalize it is so important because, you know, I know drummers that use their tongue against their teeth, you know, or move their mouth in a funny way to help with that rhythm. And I think it's, like we said earlier, with the movement, any way you can make that rhythm happen and cement it together is a good thing. But well spotted, yeah, my foot was doing that, you know, and it's kind of just, it's kind of centered that I should do that. It's kind of funny. Sometimes I try and do it without any at all. You know, when I'm doing clinics or with my students, I'll say, right, I'm going to try and move nothing at all and try and feel this. But it's hard because the whole idea is you feel the rhythm. But yeah, using your heel on the foot plate is a really good idea. Also, sometimes my bass drum foot, my heel will come up slightly higher on my bass drum too, depending on the grid, depending on the song, depending on the power I need at the time. But yeah, I'll use any of those motions. And there's no one in this room that remembers the session, but I did a session at Real World where we did take upon take. We did about 35 in the end. And we ended up using number 2, as you always do, or 3. You know, it's typical. But it wasn't a click, because they wanted that sort of John Lennon Plastic Ono Band feel. So it's kind of on the grid, but it's a bit, well, that lovely Ringo thing, that slight swing, but it's not swing. So in the end, I was kind of spinning around like a top on my stool, you know, and really feeling those beats. And yeah, I mean, I'm as guilty of that as everyone, but that's why you feel those rhythms.
While we're talking about pedals and feet, Taishwan Tyler asks what you got connected to the right pedal. But I presume he's talking about the aux hat.
Oh, this bad boy. Yes, well, yeah, what do I have here? This is a new, it's a prototype. I probably shouldn't be using it. The man from Vulcan is in the room like this. It's a plexi hat, basically. The plastic base to this is really heavy, and because there's not many of these around, I actually locked it away safe in a cupboard because I would not want to lose that part of the hi-hat. But what I've done is I've put a Vulcan Dark Master hi-hat underneath this. I mean, you can't really see that, I suppose. But I've put it underneath this. But it should be a bit of plastic. That's why it's called the plexi hats, because it sounds phenomenal. But a little overpowering, I find, for what I wanted to do with this setup. And I know most people say, why the devil do you do that? Just get an X hat. I'm kind of old school. I like the feel of moving my foot across. It's not that I'm just trying to be like copy Thomas Lang, I want more pedals. It's not that. I just love the fact that I can come over here and move this hat. I don't want that rod that goes around the kit, that thing. It just feels weird playing an X hat or whatever. But I do use it. I used it on the first song today. And sometimes on sessions, I will use it as an extra hat. And I'll put like, I'll show you. I put like, if we're changing, this is a whole nother lesson that I'm giving away already, too soon. But put some of these on the drums to change the sound up a wee little bit. So. Getting into the electronic sounding world, change the floor tom a little bit from a toneful floor tom to a slightly deader floor tom. And I'll play. And I could do these double type ideas in these kind of grooves. No longer need the bass drum. People have said, oh, use your left foot. I could do on the slave pedal, but there's something more creative I find in thinking I get the floor tom. Usually it might be the deeper one, actually, but getting a bass drum out of here. So when I play a crash, I have to think this. Just a different way of playing again, giving yourself challenges. But as I say, that's probably for another masterclass, because that's another thing that I cover, changing a conventional kit to sound like something else. But yeah, it's a plexi hat. It's got little jingles on them, and it's a wonderful thing. There's a main hi-hat as an effect type thing. It's just something really nice to have on the drum set. And as I say, for as far as the pedal goes, I just like moving over physically to this pedal. I just like it. Having it between the floor toms, sometimes it gets in my way. At clinics, I sometimes go across it and think, blast, you know. But generally, it's a good thing to have on the drum set. And it also works as a bit of a clap. So that's that, yeah. Just a bit of fun, really.
From a sound engineer point of view, it sounds excellent.
Yeah.
I really like having just a little bit of flavour like that in a kit.
Yeah, I think having I don't know if the side cam can catch this, but I think having the jingles on it makes a big difference because, you know, I love Chris Daddy Dave and I've seen him live a number of times and he's legendary. I mean, he's phenomenal. And dropping a tambourine, I mean, I've got my little boy, he's 4 years old. I use his little tambourine sometimes on top of my hat and it sounds great, but doesn't sound like this when it's actually studded into the cymbal itself. It gives it a totally different sound. And the hi-hat itself is really heavy, because it'd have to be to get the studs through without, because most top hi-hats aren't that heavy, but this is majorly heavy. But it's a great sound, and I love it. I haven't recorded with it yet. Most engineers would sort of use it as a discus, I think, for that sort of reason, as a main hat, but as an auxiliary, man, it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Just want to say sorry to everyone listening for the jingles right in Rob's microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Christmas came early.
You're doing a great job at giving me a segue between questions.
Hey!
I've got a really interesting question here from Aldi Drums on Twitter.
Okay.
Be sure to get hold of us on Twitter, by the way. So, you'll have to listen for this one.
Right.
So he says, nightmare scenario. You've turned up to... That's a good start. You've turned
Which
up to
one? There's been so many.
You've turned up to the rehearsal/gig/session with the wrong cymbals for the job.
Ah.
Any tips for items to keep in your kit bag to help alter your sound on these scenarios, or is it just venerable gaffer tape?
Well, you know, I've got just the thing somewhere.
Is it what I'm thinking of?
It is. It's over there.
Hang on, I'll come... Oh, go for it, go for it.
If that's all right, I've got props for this one.
The hard plastic. Yeah.
Let me show you something which, you know, is going to feel like a direct sales thing, but I can't avoid
Go
it.
on, chuck it.
It's too good a thing to... sit down. It's too good a thing to pass up on. Now, people used to giggle at me and say, Rob, why are you endorsing just cymbal felts? That's crazy, you've gone mad. But I can safely say that the Cympad stuff has changed my cymbal ideology and way of playing cymbals tenfold. And I'm just going to show you something. And they say you should never do live stuff with animals and stuff like that. But, you know, I'm going to try a live thing here. Now,
They said nothing about cymbal felts.
now, they make these absolutely incredible cymbal felts. They come in different sizes here. Now, as I say, it's fortuitous that you've asked this question with this stuff here. Now, they're different sizes, as well as these chromatics here and everything. They're all these different coloured ones, and they work fantastically well. But if you've got something that's a bit noisy and it's not sounding too good, thankfully I haven't got that. But yes, sometimes on a session, if I'm going somewhere and for some reason I haven't taken my cymbals, which is very rare, but if it happens and I've got maybe a noisy ride or a crash that I don't want to do, really want to play as it's sounding, let me just give you an idea. So I've got this. This is one of these things that if you were in the room, it'd be a bit easier, but... Not too much sustain, not too much going on. Now, if I put these bad boys on, moderators, is that right? Moderators, sorry, I should say the... So, I'm now changing up my setup. I'm probably out of shot, I'm standing up. Get told off by Joe. So I'm putting one underneath, okay? And actually, I'm going to put another on top as well, which I wouldn't normally do. But now, all of a sudden, my sound... changed. So now I'm getting more stick response and less of the wash of the cymbal. So when I'm playing, you know, we all do sort of Pizza Express gigs where people are dining and we're playing with a jazz trio or quartet, you know, and I probably wouldn't be playing with sticks that big, the Bopwork sticks, the Art Blakey model, very nice too. I'll probably be using maybe a Bopworks Birdland, possibly, or the Shelly Man, or West Coast. But anyway, here's a slightly smaller stick. And already it sounds lighter from here. Totally different sound. And if I go to the lightest stick that I could possibly play, which is the Birdland, pure stick response. So we're going from the Art Blakey, which is kind of like a 5A, down to the Birdland. All of a sudden, that cymbal, no one's going to say, you got a 20 or a 22. My goodness, that's too loud. Not anymore. You know? And you need to know how to play it as well, obviously. Don't attack it. But instantly, that works on crashes as well, obviously. You know, top and bottom, it solves it. Stops the extra rattle, the extra hum that you just don't need.
Can you give us a quick example playing with the rest of the kit?
That's that ride?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm going to want to play much quieter now I've got that on there as well, which is never a bad thing for us drummers. So let us change up sticks. I'll put that there. So if I'm playing in that style, and I'll play something fairly upbeat, so instead of just something just chilled like... So obviously we can keep that there. But if you play a bit more boisterously... it totally changes the sound completely. You know, having moon gel, some guys say moon gel is good. I've used moon gel on cymbals. I don't like it. I mean, I don't mind the little market leaves, I've got to say, because I can get rid of that. But it just doesn't do it for me. So having various sizes of those moderators, and they do bigger ones than this as well, don't they? They do quite, you know, I've got some in my cymbal bag that are huge. You know, so that instantly will sort your cymbals out a little better. You know, sometimes if it's a bad cymbal, it's just a bad cymbal, isn't it? And there's not much you can do about it, no matter what trickery. But this is stuff that you can get a hold of that will really improve your sound. If you want to sing a bit more, the chromatics are good. If you've got a good cymbal, brilliant. Don't put these on, it'll choke the sound, you know. Let them sing a bit more, and these work really well. I don't know any other company that specialises in this either, so well worth looking into. You know, you can have like a sizzle thing as well, like a, what am I trying to say? Look, beads. What am I trying to say for a sizzle? A sizzle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good to have on a ride. Sometimes it rides a little bit dodgy, you know, and the stick response is a bit harsh. Sometimes putting one of those sizzle effects on there. You can even get it from going to a hardware store and buying a plug, take the plug off it and just use that.
Or just steal it off the one in your sink.
Well, I wouldn't recommend doing that. That was Luke's idea. I wouldn't suggest to do that. But that works really well too, because that'll sit and buzz on your cymbal. And sometimes, it doesn't have to be jazz either. Just might make the cymbal sound a bit sweeter, you know.
I imagine the sort of dampening that those pads give as well be quite good for metal guys.
Yeah,
You're doing that kind of
yeah, if you want quick response, it's not genre specific. You know, like I said about the drumming stuff. You know, all of it can be used in any style. It's just how you use it. And sometimes I have nothing on them at all. Just these chromatics underneath. Maybe one of these on there's a 24-inch ride here, that is beautiful. It's monstrous. Maybe one of these just to calm it, but I kind of like it where it is.
Yeah. Should we get another question?
Yes, by all means, yes.
David Brown asks, Rob, could you please demonstrate some ideas to left of your... Sorry, I'll start that one again.
Have you been drinking? He hasn't been drinking, even though there's a bar there, but there's nothing in it.
No, I promise. Rob, could you please demonstrate some ideas to help with left foot independence while playing Latin grooves? Left foot independence, that's a whole nother lesson. That was going to be... Okay. Well, I see a certain red object now on your left foot, which I think might be ideal. It's a bit noisy. Yes, so there's only a handful of ones that I really look at. And I did try, when the Thomas Lang DVD came out, that was like 5 hours long, I still worship that DVD. What an amazing drummer, you know. Talk about creativity. I mean, that is just, it's beautiful, you know. So I actually looked at some of the PDFs from that and started to work on them and realized that I was going to be roughly about 75 before I could get hold of any of the ideas. So this was quite a while ago. So I thought, right, it's time to build my own concepts. Like I've sort of done with this. It's not new information. It's just how I've sort of regurgitated it, really. And I thought the same thing with my left foot. I thought, how can I use it in places I want to use it? I mean, I've been in Beatle bands, you know, tribute bands, way back in the day, where I would maybe keep the hi-hat like this, half open, for that Ringo thing, you know. So, and on something like A Hard Day's Night, I know I haven't got the cowbell on, but I would have had a cowbell. But for the chorus and stuff, I'm not allowed to sing, am I? But for that song, I'm not allowed to sing generally. I could just put it on my foot. So I'd go... And I know some students of mine, they've just taken the idea and done that, or played it on the ands and stuff like that. That's fine. But I want to take it a bit further. So I took half of a clave pattern, bat, 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 and just looped it. And I started just playing over the top of that with any strokes. Now, students of mine will know I've got like a pyramid of ideas. So I start with single strokes, doubles, then roll ideas, then 5-stroke roll, 6-stroke roll, go through all my roughs, all my rolls, 6-stroke rolls, anything in between, you know, I did say 6, anything in between, just to try and work through it. And I spend ages just working through those ideas. And then maybe... Then I went to the ride cymbal and thought of different patterns. So I'm playing just steady crotchets on my bass drum and...
hand things, go to the ride cymbal. My two favorite roughs, a 3 forward and a 3 reverse. So the forward is, and the reverse is, just put those on the ride. Start putting that in there. You start thinking about what your left hand could do on the rim click. Start coming away to do fills. Before you know it, you start to build a foundation. And you go back to Mr. Lang and say thank you for the inspiration to start working on something. I didn't do your exercise, but do you know what? You've helped me do something else. And I think I heard Ian Pace from Deep Purple say that, you know, he does things like that. He sometimes goes back on YouTube to drummers from the 50s and 40s and 30s and brings ideas back with him because he kind of likes that and says, thank you, Mr. Joe Jones, or, you know, thank you, Ray Badook, or whatever, you know, for that idea. And I thank Mr. Lang for that. So that's one of the things that I do. Another pattern that could help you, again, I don't want to go too far because this is like another lesson.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is a lesson in itself,
yeah,
really,
but that's a good idea. One more I'll give you very quickly for free. Right. It's all for free. Hey! So we're doing like a 6/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's almost like it's in 4, but it feels like, well, it's in 6, but it feels like it's 4. And over the top of that, you play single strokes, double strokes, go around the drum set. And it's in one of the adverts, actually, for this clinic, this masterclass. So if you go on YouTube, it'll be on there because Luke's quite right. We should save these nuggets for another time. But yeah, there's another thing I do there. And there's a paradiddle that I do with the hi-hats as well. That was something else that was on another advert for this masterclass as well, which is online. Maybe go and check that out as well. Doing inverted paradiddles with my feet and inverted paradiddles with my hands, but 2 different rates. So I'll be doing quavers with my feet, 16s with my hands and stuff. But there's going to be a whole masterclass on that. So, you know, this bad boy was a bit redundant today, but he will be used in other masterclasses.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah, I certainly hope so too.
Well, we're coming up to about 9 o'clock. We've got about 3 questions left.
That went quick.
We'll have to, well, I feel a bit guilty saying let's get them through quick, especially this next one, because it's quite deep.
Ask away.
Okay. Let me see. Kev Cook, he asks...
Hello, Kev, by the way. I hope you're feeling good. I'll give you a ring.
All right.
I know him.
Okay. I thought you were just, you know, asking strangers on the internet if they want to have a chat, you know?
Yeah, do you want a lesson? Times are hard.
Anyway, Kev asks, how do you get out of a creative rut, Rob? What do you listen to for inspiration and new ideas?
Well,
he also says, thanks, mate, and greetings from Cornwall.
I wish I was down in Cornwall. It's a beautiful place to be.
Don't we all?
Yeah. I mean, ideas like this, Kevin, to be honest, mate, these sort of ideas break me away from the norm. What I've just said about the left foot thing as well, same thing. As I say, it's not exactly rocket science. It's not moving, you know, the earth in a different way that no one's done before. Like someone said, there's nothing new under the sun. But it's just how I look at it, how I play it, how I add things to it that makes it feel like it's my own. And I found a little while ago, well, quite a while ago, I actually stopped going to gigs, local gigs. And there's so many great drummers in this area. You know, I could name, you know, there's like Clive Deemer, Mike Hodnott, Eddie John, you know, Matt Brown. There's just so many great drummers in this area. Ian Matthews, you know, it's like we're overflowing. I said Mark Willett-Muller, we're overflowing with these great players. But I stopped going to see people because I was just like, oh, I should borrow that lick. I should borrow that lick. Oh, I'm not doing that. That's why I haven't got that gig. And it was coming from the ego space rather than a beautiful music place. And what I did, I ended up going to that drum shop in Bristol, buying loads of videos, as it was then, good old VHS, of Dennis Chambers, Peter Erskine, all those things that are now on DVD and now on Blu-ray and YouTube. And I'd sit and take elements of bits I liked. They used to come with little booklets of the rhythms. And I'd put Dennis Chambers, I like that. Steve Gadd, I like that, I'm having that. You know, Steve Jordan, I'm definitely having that. And I'd put them together, I'd sort of jumble them up. And I realised that's what any good musician can do, you know, is put ideas together. David Bowie did it. You know, Prince did it. Miles Davis did it. It's just, they sound original, but you can always hear the sort of, the line of where they came from. But they're doing it as an original artist. It's a very strange thing. So that's what I did. I started to look at that sort of information. Then thinking, how do I like to play double pedals? Well, I don't want to be a blast beat player, but how can I include them into what I do? How do I like left foot clave? How do I like funk? How do I like this, that, and the other? And it just broke me out of a rut, and I stopped worrying about what everyone else was doing. And like I said at the start, you do something like this, you think, oh, I should be chopsy all night and play when I do under the cymbal or the one-handed thing with the bass. But really, I didn't, that's going on already, and I've got clips of me doing that. So I wanted this to be a really creative sort of process and bring ideas to you guys that hopefully will inspire you to, I'll try that hi-hat thing, or I'll try that down on my bass drum. And then we didn't even get to that because there's so much to get through. Or I could try that on my snare drum underneath the hi-hat playing quavers. So many different ways, but that's exactly what I do. I look what's already there, stroke my chin and think, right, how can I reinvent that information? And it only takes one idea, one of these today, that will lead you down a rabbit hole of good stuff. Usually when people say rabbit hole, it's a bad thing, isn't it? But in this instance, or let's say a corridor then, a corridor of inspiration, which you can always come back from and then open another one and so on. And I was talking just on Sunday to one of my students about this, and it's just having those options, and then you think, there's only 2 doors I can go through. Then there's a third, then there's a fourth, then there's a fifth. And in the end, it's just, there is no end to it. And you just feel like when you do these things yourself that you've come up with something. Even if someone says, I've seen so-and-so play that, that doesn't matter to me, because it's like, well, that's okay, because I didn't find him or her playing it. I discovered it myself. And that whole process, I learned a lot about me in that time as I was doing it, hence the lockdown, hence this creative thing that we're talking about today. So you can see how it's, as David Brent would say, how it's all coming together.
That's a nice answer.
Thank you.
So, 2 more questions left.
Oh.
Also, Bopworks popped their head in to say hello.
Hello, Chris. Lovely to see you, my man.
So, I have a gear question and a little philosophy question. Should we have the gear one?
Gear first.
So, Freakout Fitch asks, what stool is Rob using and what is the cable going into it?
Woohoo! This is the Porter and Davies.
Swivel to your right a bit.
Like this?
Yeah, there we go.
There you go. And it's the BC Gigster. There is one that's posher than this, but I kind of like the way this worked with, you probably can't, you won't be able to see, but it comes with the actual device which sends the feed of the band. So basically I've got my drum kit, I've got the backing tracks that I'm playing to, which is coming from my new album soon, hopefully. Plug, plug, plug.
Plug.
Yep, plug, plug, plug. And all of it is coming from Luke's desk, right the way through the Gigster, through the lead, up into the stool, up into my very being. So the actual band is moving me. And it's incredible. And it's one of the best things that I've ever bought, because a lot of the times, I don't want to use my 22-inch bass drum. I'll want to use my 18 or a 20. And sometimes you suddenly see the guitarist turns up, as if he's like Richie Blackmore. That's an old reference, but, with a huge stack, and you're like, all right, and then the bass player comes in with his rig. You realise you're on a blues gig. You've brought your 18 or your 20, saying, don't worry, they'll mic it up. And we all know that's going to be good out front, even if it is an 18. It's going to sound great if it's an 18, because we know that's quite bassy for the size and everything. But yeah, when you're here behind it, hitting it, you just feel like you're hitting into air. So I found when I bought one of these, I don't need it on jazz sessions or anything like that, or the tour I'm doing with Loreena, whenever that starts up, hopefully again soon. I don't need it on those kind of gigs, but with Siouxsie, I used it. When I played blues in a blues band, Innes Seiben, a great blues guitarist, he used to play with Robert Plant and stuff. When I worked with him, of course he wants to be loud, of course. The band needs to be loud, it's that thing. We've got a Hammond player as well, so we're sort of bringing that deep purpley type sound to the surface. I love Ian Pace, so it's like, here we go. But then I can't hear a bass drum, and you think, Ian's got a 30 or a 28-inch bass drum, that's why. But he doesn't have to carry it, I do at times. So this device means you can, when I hit the drum, it comes literally up through my body. It's amazing. You have to be careful with, you don't want to dial it into too much, because your spine will pop out, be like some out of Alien.
They are powerful.
It's very powerful. And earlier on today, I was messing with the setting, and I had to stop the song halfway through because my eyes were just going... It was crazy.
So from a sound engineer perspective, it's like instead of putting the drummer in front of a big subwoofer, which is then going to bleed into your microphones, and it might cause all sorts of issues, especially with the kick drum. This is a good alternative to a kick drum that only the drummer on the stool is going to feel, and you do really feel it.
You do.
And I just want to say, you don't have to run like a feed from a mixing desk into it.
No.
You can just plug your kick drum mic in, and then it has a pass-through, and you can use it like that.
And when I was playing those gigs, I'd let the sound guy, because a lot of sound guys would look at it and go, I don't know what that is. Don't give me any extra things to worry about. And I'll say, ugh. And I used to say to the guys at Portland Davies, I said, look, man, this is a problem. They say, tell them to do it. Everyone's going to be doing it soon. But when I got with like Siouxsie and people, they're like, yeah, I've seen those before. Plug them in. It's great. We'll have it. But what I used to do was take a little mic on a little stand and put it this side of my bass drum so I could monitor it myself. You know, that was a really good idea. So, like, you know, Luke said, it's great when you got somebody who says, yeah, we've plumbed that in. But sometimes some engineers just like, you don't need that, mate. You'll be fine with a wedge. I said, I don't really want a wedge, actually. I can hear these guys enough. I know what he's singing. I know what we're doing. I just want to hear a bit of bass drum, please, because you can see I've got the old 18 or 20. Give me a lifeline here, please. So having that just really helps.
Even just being able to feel what you're playing, it makes a big difference.
It does, because then you stop stomping on the pedal and you stop, not that I would do that, but you know, you see guys and you're like, man, you're going to ruin your technique, you're going to ruin your leg, you're going to ruin the pedal, you're going to ruin the drum. You don't need to play that loud. You know, there's ways around that. And this is a perfect way around it, if you can get to it.
Yeah.
Check out their website, Portrait Davies. Fantastic.
Absolutely. I also happen to know a certain Cardiff-based shop who have just got some more in stock. So,
yes.
I shouldn't say too much, but...
Are we not allowed to say? No.
I don't know.
Drum Depot. Look!
Oh, no!
It's out there! OK. So, yeah.
One last question from Steve Kingston.
Hello, Steve.
He says...
He's a great drummer as well. He lives in Bath.
Oh, really?
Yeah, good to see the Bath contingency, even though once moved to Cornwall. But, yeah, to get away from me.
So, Steve asks, any particular style of music you wish you could get to play more often?
The one that pays the most money. No. I mean, any, Steve, at the moment. I mean, that's an obvious answer with lockdown. It's almost like a snooze answer, that. But anything would be nice. But I think good, authentic, horn-led funk. I keep saying funk. The average white band style thing.
I mean, who doesn't like funk?
The soul thing. Yeah, exactly. Tower of Power. I don't think I'd want to go up the... if we use the Metronome analogy, the hot end of the snarky puffy stuff, you know. I've done a lot of fusion stuff in the past, and I love it, but it's too much of a headache to play. I like stuff with an even groove. I mean, I've played that stuff, as I say, and I did love it, but it was more like mathematics than anything else. So, yeah, I think good straight-ahead jazz. I miss that. Blue Note kind of style jazz. And Tower of Power, stroke average white band style funk. You know, maybe not quite too much of that, like Tower of Power. Somewhere in between the two would be fantastic. With a really nice groove, bit of Sly and the Family Stone in there, stroke Prince, stroke that sort of stuff. Man, if I could find a band like that, I wouldn't be here right now. Well, I would, because we wouldn't be gigging. But you know what I mean? That would be absolutely fantastic. And if there's a band out there looking, I could wear a wig as well.